Hello students, welcome back to the video classes of class 12 English. This is your English teacher from St. Norbert Senior Secondary School, Daman. Today we are taking poem number 3 from Flamingo book, that is Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Pablo Neruda is a poet who was awarded Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. So let us understand the central idea of this poem. Pablo Neruda in this poem has emphasized the importance of introspection. Man has become very selfish and his own actions cause him many miseries. The world today stands divided by the man-made boundaries of caste, creed, race, religion, language, culture, nationality, and geographical divisions. We need to rise above these shadow lines and look at the larger picture. The poet talks about the necessity of creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. So basically, poet here emphasizes three things. First is peace and unity. Second one is introspection. And third one is mutual understanding. So let us see this poem stanzas by stanzas. The first stanza. In the first stanza, the poet urges each one of us to count up to 12 and then be quiet. The poet might have used the phrase count to 12 as there are 12 hours represented on a clock or as there are 12 months in a year. He might have wanted the people to keep still as long as they could. He wants a moment of silence on the earth when no language is spoken. In this way, there will be no language barrier between people. No harsh words will be spoken. In this moment of silence, the poet doesn't want anyone to move their arms. He wants us to remain motionless. So in the first stanza, poet wants us to count up to 12. If you have seen the people who are short-tempered, some people start counting, so that their anger might come down. They may calm down. So poet wants us to count up to 12 and be calm and silent for a moment. And he wants us to be motionless and not move our arms so much. Arms can be defined here with the two meanings. Arms, that is the body part, our hands, and another arm is the weapons. So no one should use weapons to fight. Moving on to the second stanza. In the second stanza, the poet feels that such a moment of silence would be an unusual and exciting one. It will have miraculous consequences. There will be no hurry or the sound of machines to pollute the atmosphere. It will be a strange and unfamiliar moment with stillness all around. In this unusual period, the bonds of humanity will get stronger. So, in this stanza, the poet says that it will be an unfamiliar moment because before this, the world has not been so still. And the world is not in silence before this. This would be the first time when there will be no words, no sounds of engines, machines, and there will be stillness and silence all over the world. Moving on to the third stanza. In this moment of inactivity, the fisherman would not be catching fish. Hence, the whales in the sea will be safe. This idea is suggestive of the thought that human beings would not destroy nature. The man who gathers salt will be able to tend to his wounded hands, for which he had no time earlier. Thus, both nature and humans will be able to recover from their wounds. So, in this stanza, poet says that the fisherman will not catch the fish. As a result, poet wants to symbolize that the man will not destroy the nature when he is still, when he is silent. And the person who collects the salt, it means the working persons. Every person is working to earn their livelihoods, but it's still a high race in which the people are running to earn money, more money, more money. You have seen the people, just they are after the money, and they don't have the time for themselves, for their families. So poet is saying that when the world will be still, when the world will be silent for a moment, then you would have time to think over yourself, for yourself. You can give time for yourself and for your family. You can, the salt collecting person can have a look on their wounds. Moving on to the fourth stanza. The poet now speaks of those who wage wars against humanity or environment, wars of all kinds, including death and destruction, wars that leave none to celebrate victory. He says that such men should stop their activity, shed their clothes stained with the blood of humanity, put on new clothes, and walk with their brothers, building brotherhood. The poet implies that the war torn world should be replaced by one with an atmosphere of peace, brotherhood, and harmony. So, in this stanza, poet points out to the human beings who urges or creates the environment which causes war against humanity and the nature, war of all kinds, the use of chemicals, the poisonous gases. So he wants those people to remove all those bloodshed clothes who have harmed the humanity and put on the new clothes and walk with the brothers, building the brotherhood. The poet implies that the war torn world should be replaced by one with an atmosphere of peace, brotherhood, and harmony. Moving on to the fifth stanza, the poet makes a clarification that though he is advocating the need for silence, his advice should not be confused with total inactivity. He does not want any association with death. He says that life is meant to be lived. So, in this stanza, poet is trying to explain that if I am saying that world should be still or silent for a moment, it doesn't mean that I am associating it, this idea, with the death of all the world. No, it is not like that. Just he is saying the life is meant to be lived. Today, in this world, in this competitive world, we are seeing the people, the students are running for the good marks. They are studying for the higher clearing exams to get a good position. So the businessman, he wants the higher position, he wants to earn more and more profit. So everybody in the world is running behind something, and their life, they are not seeing their life, they are not enjoying their life. So poet is saying just take a moment and live your life. It is not associated with the death of any person or the world. Moving to the sixth stanza, the poet further advises that people should stop being self centered and selfish. For one moment, they should not think of keeping their lives moving, meeting their ends, or fulfilling their duties. The youth silence will arise from such a moment, will only serve to help the people. It will help them introspect and overcome their sadness of failing to understand themselves. People have been threatening themselves with the death by their activities. This moment of silence will give them time to understand themselves better. So, in this stanza, poet is saying that now stop being self-centered or selfish. For a moment, take a break and instead of meeting your ends or fulfilling your duties, just take a break and be silent. This silence will help you overcome your sadness of failing to understand themselves. People have been threatening themselves with a death with their activities. This moment of silence will give them time to understand themselves better. Yes, it is true that the people won't have time for themselves. As I have told you, this is a competitive world, but with the earning of livelihood also, the human should give time to himself or herself to analyze, to develop himself more. Moving on to the seventh stanza, the last stanza, the poet feels that the earth can enlighten us and guide us in this process of keeping quiet. He wants us to observe that there is some activity under apparent stillness. For instance, a seed appears to be dead, but huge fruit bearing trees are born from such seeds lying dead here and there. Finally, the poet thinks that he has said what he intended to. Now he wants to keep quiet, and while he is counting to 12, after which he will leave. So, poet here explains that the dead seeds, okay, which has the potential to become a plant, to become a fruit. So he wants that everybody is working. We are working continuously for ourselves, but everybody should take a break, sit calm, and think for ourselves. The silence within will help us to understand ourselves better. So, I hope you might have understood the poem well. Do listen and watch this video repeatedly. Thank you.